Well, I said it's gonna set my soul on fire. Got a whole lot of money that's ready to burn, so get those stakes up higher. There's 1,000 friends.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the show tonight. Welcome to Body Slamming Conversations. I'm your host, Rockin' Randy, and my other host over there, Mr. Good Looking himself, Mr. Booker. I'd like to tell everybody hello. Booker, how are you doing tonight?
Fine. How about yourself? What's going on?
I'm doing great, buddy. Looking to have a great show tonight and see what we can do here to get our special guest who's in here tonight, Miss Tiffany Doran, book writer, investigator, Bigfoot, Dogman. We will get her on the show. Let's bring her into the room right now. Tiffany, how are you doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Tiff, it's an honor to have you on.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Tiffany, this is Mr. Booker. I don't know if you met him or not, but he's out here, and we're going to put you in the hot seat tonight.
I know. Hello, Mr. Booker. This is definitely a different side for me.
Hey, how you doing?
Normally she's doing the podcast. Asking questions.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Tiff, want to tell me about the show that you do?
Sorry about that.
Tiffany, you want to tell everybody about the show that you make the podcast with?
Sure. I am one half of Paranormal Odyssey. We have a live show we do every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. and every other Saturday at 10 p.m. And we have guests of all different kinds on. So they can have anything from experiences, cryptid related, ghostly, paranormal. We like listening to all of them. And it's just a really good show. And we have our core group who's in there every week, every time that we're on. And we have our $1.99 membership that gets you extra perks to our show. We have our members only Discord, member only hangouts, members only movie nights, and it's all just $1.99. And right now, we are actually running a giveaway. So for the first 50 members who join for $1.99, they have the option, if won, they can win a Yeti lunchbox, a signed copy of one of my books, a signed copy of Naomi Finn's book, and some Paranormal Odyssey merch. So,
well, you guys got a lot going over there on that show.
Yes, we are busy. We are all booked up until July so far. So we're starting to book for July now.
That is sweet. Glad to hear it. I know I did the show with you and Wayne. It was awesome. I was honored to be on you guys' show, and we were laughing, had a good time, and we're gonna see if we can do that again tonight.
Yes, it was a blast having you on, and I got to tell you, I laughed so hard. I was so hard.
Tiffany, before we get started, I'm gonna ask you a question. You make these love romantic books, okay?
I did.
Not that I've read them. I've seen the covers and read, the back part of it. You went from romantic books to Terror in the Woods, the unfamiliar. First of all, how do you go from one thing to the other, Tiff?
I gotta tell you, it wasn't something that I had ever planned to do. Because if you know me personally, and I've grown since being on the show, I've gotten so much better about it, but I was a chicken with a capital C. So writing horror fiction wasn't ever something I ever thought I would do. I wrote these 2 romance suspense novels because I wanted to read a book like it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So I started these in 2015. Desires of the Heart. I finished it in 2017, and it didn't feel complete. So then I wrote the sequel to it, Forbidden Desires. And then I sat on them. I was literally scared to death because I didn't have the confidence in myself to say, hey world, here's these great books that I wrote. And I'm absolutely biased, but I think they're wonderful. So, but finally at the end of 2022, I said, okay, they deserve to be in more places than just my flash drive. So I bit the bullet and put them out. And I'm glad I did. So,
so like just one day you woke up and said, I'm gonna write some terror in my life, but you got out of the you started cutting up things, and your husband was spazzing out, going, honey, are you okay? I like writing novels.
No, I gotta tell you. Okay, so I worked retail from 1999 until May 14th, Mother's Day, actually, of 2023. It had just gotten to the point to where it was toxic, and it was really taking its toll on me physically, mentally, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I had talked to my husband about it, and he had been telling me, and my friends had been telling me, and the rest of my family had been telling me, you really need to step away because now it's unhealthy now. So I quit my job, and after 4 years, I quit my job, and I was like, okay. So the day after, Wayne had approached me, and I was the moderator at first for Paranormal Odyssey. And so he approached me and was like, hey, I was thinking of writing some, episodes for Paranormal Odyssey. Is that something that you would be interested in doing? So I was like, yeah, sure. And then I think it was a week later, Brian King Sharp reached out to me from Sasquatch Odyssey and approached me with the same question. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so they were weekly episodes that then turned into 2 fully complete novels. And I'm going to tell you, and Mr. Booker will know because I know he's a writer as well, setting down in 2 months' time and writing 2 novels is not easy. And it is very time consuming and mentally exhausting. But at the same time, it gave me that opportunity to try different paths to take. So I got to explore another passion of mine, which is cryptid, which is paranormal, and just travel down that road. But that's how they were born. And then Dogman, Terror in the Woods and the Unfamiliars was actually picked up in July by Hanger One Publishing and put out. So
you woke up one day and said, I need more in my life besides love novels. Do you kill anybody in those love novels? I mean, is it like a soap opera where someone gets killed with somebody else, or the guy comes home and finds the wife, boyfriend in the closet? I mean, anything like that?
Well, I will tell you, with Desires of the Heart, you do have your classic love triangle, but there is a secret someone who has also acquired an infatuation with my main character, and it just unravels as the story goes on between her love interest. Do I love the man from the past? Do I love the man from the future? And then enters in her stalker, and it just unravels and unravels from there.
Well, Tiff, I think you owe me some royalties. That's my life. I don't have to do a show with you or anything because now everybody knows who knows.
Yep. So, and I can't tell you if anybody dies or not. That's It's a spoiler. I'm not a spoiler. I like keeping everything as a surprise, but there's lots of twists and turns, and you know, it just my goal when I wrote that, and my goal when I write anything is not just for the reader to read my book and consume my book. I want them to experience it. So
Right.
when I write a book, everything is as detailed as I can possibly make it, but I want them to be able to use their imagination and see it as well as read it.
It's a lot of work. I know Booker and I've talked about his book. And in fact, he's got his book behind him. And it's like the Chicago phone book. I mean, hard. Booker, pull up your book behind you.
Well, this is the book right here with the Wolfman in it. So you can see how thick it is.
Yeah.
This is 1 of 10 that I've written. All my books are self-published, so and they're nonfiction.
Desires of the Heart and Forbidden Desires is self-published.
Oh, okay. So do you think self-publishing is better than regular publishing?
I think it gives you more opportunity as far as maybe pricing goes. But self-publishing is hard because you are responsible for everything. You're responsible for the word of mouth, the marketing. I don't know how to do that. I am not good at marketing. I will write it if somebody else sells it for me. That's where I'm at.
Right. Well, it does require a team, and the amount of people that you need in a team is sort of what led me down self-publishing. I already had a large fan base I had a core fan base, is what you want to call it, somebody that was going to follow you anywhere. So that's what allowed me to write my first book. And in the author realm, they don't consider you an author until you've written more than 2. And one of another layer of the science of book selling is that people will look at you as if you're trying to use being an author as a get rich quick scheme. So they want to feel a little bit more comfortability with you writing, with your writing skill, and that you're serious about being an author. So you should have more than one published. And due to I've been able to just build my fan base. Like I said, I had a core fan base, so I just jumped into it. And I didn't go down the novel route because I didn't read novels. So that's one thing. That what led you into the comfortability of writing?
Well, I don't really think, and just to let you know, my screen is frozen on my side, so you see me there with this horrible look on my face, and I apologize. But as long as you can hear me, we're good.
We're good.
Okay. So if I disappear, I promise I'll come back.
Right.
I wasn't really looking for any comfortability. I just wanted to be, I've always wanted to write.
Oh, okay.
I've always wanted to write, and I started writing when I was 11. So I had, little childish stories, and I would write them, and then I would
10 years now, right?
do what?
Been writing for 10 years.
Oh, you're so sweet. I sure have. Dang, you knew it. But I would write them and then I would act them out, So it was just kind of one of those things. And, I just always wanted to be an author. I always loved reading. I watched my mom read all the Danielle Steele books and Nora Roberts. And, I just always thought it was really, really cool to see someone just really enthralled with reading. And I wanted to do that. But I was also very afraid. So it's just taking that step and just saying, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta do it. You do it scared, do it broke, do it tired. Just do it.
You have to take a chance
Right.
in life.
Right.
You know what I mean? You
Yes.
don't take the
And
chance, you never know, and you'll be kicking yourself in the butt saying, should I have done that? You know, it's like I tell people, I used to go out and wrestle. I would throw up all the way to the curtain. I was so nervous. And I've done it 100 times, 1,000 times. Music, as soon as I
yeah,
walked down the curtain came down through that curtain, the music came on, I was a star. You know, I was like, butterflies go away.
yeah.
It's such a high when you can beat your, the fears of yourself.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I was telling you, like, and I'll say it again just because it's true. I was as nervous as long-tailed cats in a room full of rocking chairs. And I got to be honest with you, my palms are still sweaty, but I do this every week. I do this every week.
I'm going to say to you what I still want you to do. So you're sweating.
We just did a show last night, but I think it's because I'm on the opposite and I'm in the hot seat and now I'm the guest. So I think that's what it is. But it's like you said, once you get out there and you start, you're fine.
And I'll tell you what, nobody has seen the show Paranormal Odyssey with Wayne and Tiffany. You need to watch the shows because they are full of information. You got some really great guests. They had a guest I watched was it this week? The guy was in the soldier that was in New Orleans with a ghost.
Yes.
All the strange things that were going on there. And, Booker, you'd have loved that show. I mean, he was talking about little kids running through the playground and dead people in the chairs, things move. I mean, it was an awesome show. You guys had a really good show.
Well, thanks. And and we are going to have him back. We are going to have him back July 6th at 10. So he's already scheduled. But it was very eye-opening.
For me, it was emotional.
Yeah. It's very eye-opening because I did a lot of research. I do a lot of research. So we have a guest that comes on. I will study that person, not like I'm not a creepy stalker. Okay, guys. But I want to learn and know about our guests. So when we come on, I'm not, just know what I'm talking about. So it was very, and a lot of that is a hard topic for me to watch and to listen to, with the people who were deceased and left behind and just the absolute disgracefulness of humans during that time.
When he was talking about that old man that was in the wheelchair, look, they gave this old man, they rolled him up to the window so the hot sun would come in on him. Gave him a couple bottles of water and his medicines, left him to die.
Yeah. It's just awful. It's just awful. But again, I mean, it was a hard pill for me to swallow to dig into that. But at the same time, I have no right to say, I'm sorry, I can't hear about this. These people effing lived that and they carry that with them. So I might watch a clip on YouTube, but that is nothing compared to what these people experienced while there.
Well, he was just a young kid from the military.
Yeah, he's young.
And he said, his sergeant and stuff telling him, hey, go in there and take care of this. The kid's like, whoa, that guy, the smell was bad. It was really bad. It was a great show that you guys had. And I believe people don't understand what goes on in the real world. I'm glad there's good authors like you and Booker out there who can write about it. Maybe you can write about that, Booker,
Yeah.
I mean, this guy writes about everything. You pick a subject in the world, he's already written about it, But let's get to your Bigfoot and your Dogman stories here because I am really interested in this stuff. And anybody out there watching the show, if you have a question for them, put it in capital letters, and I'll throw it up on the screen so they can see it, so they can answer any questions that you have. So,
And before I start, let me just shout out Troy and Rich and Matthew, who are in the chat now. They've all said hello to me. So hello. Thank you for coming.
So you got friends among us.
Yes.
Yeah. And my husband's somewhere floating around. I know he is at work, but he's trying to find me. but yeah. Oh, he's here. He just hasn't said anything, he said.
Exactly, right? Yeah, there we go.
Yep. And he is known on our show as Mr. Tiffany. And he even has a t-shirt. I had a t-shirt made for him. It has our Paranormal Odyssey logo on it. And it says Mr. Tiffany across the top.
Well, we need to get some advertisement for them. Get him in there, do a little body show for you, you know? Like you want to watch my shirt on.
Yep.
So anyways, I had talked to you once before. I was on your show, and you said something about coming. You're going out to some camp, whatever. You go out and investigate for Bigfoot, Dogman, right? You go out and do those investigations in the woods.
I don't personally go out into the woods and investigate. Okay. So I've not been out into the woods personally investigating. I do all of my investigation at my laptop because we hear so many encounters and I do so much research. It's like, and it's a 24-hour a day thing that I do. Right. So if I'm not listening to my playlist going down the road, I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm listening to a podcast when I sit in the chair at night, before I go to bed. It's just one of those everyday things for me.
So how did you come up with the Dogman there? Okay.
Oh, no, I was going to ask, your research, was it on lycanthropy or werewolfism?
Well, and it's, I had been introduced to Dogman because, Dogman's not as popular as Bigfoot. It just hasn't had its chance to thrive yet, but it's growing. So I knew when I was writing the Unfamiliars for Wayne, because that's primarily Bigfoot, but then you have like skinwalkers and pukwudgies in there, the black-eyed are in there. So it's a plethora of different, characters in the Unfamiliars. So when Brian had reached out to me, I was like, well, since I'm doing, Bigfoot for Wayne, let's just cross the tracks and do Dogman for Brian. But I wasn't as familiar with it. I wasn't as versed on it. And anytime you write something, you want to do research anyway. So it looks like you know what you're talking about. So I did research on that as much as I could because I wanted the Dogman in my descriptions to be as real as possible so they could be, seen in somebody's mind. So I went through and listened to a ton of encounters, research on the internet, just anything I could consume.
So was the Dogman like the
I'm sorry?
The Dogman like the werewolf then, or is it two separate? The werewolf and the Dogman, two different identities?
Okay, in my opinion only, take it for what it's worth, Dogmen and werewolves are separate because dogmen are always dogmen. Okay, so the werewolves come from humans who turn into werewolves, but then they turn back into humans. But dogmen are always dogmen. So
does a Dogman look like a werewolf, or does it look like a dog like in your book?
No, they do have the similarities because you do have the canine head. You normally, when you hear somebody describe their Dogman encounter, they have the dog head, kind of like Anubis, with the really pointy ears, the long snout. Some of them you will hear, or I've heard, will have the body shape like a man as far as it being thin, but then others, they're like buffed out, kind of like the same stature as Bigfoot, but with a dog head. So it varies from encounter to encounter, but they're all scary as hell. and they're all a big nope for me, and I don't want to experience that. Thanks.
Well, I don't know if I saw something standing on two legs with like a dog. I'm getting the hell out of that.
Exactly. And I was listening today as I was cleaning. Yeah, I'm telling you, if I saw something like that, changing, no.
And actually
No.
looks
Yeah,
like
that's one of the advertisements for my second volume, where I go
Yeah.
over werewolfism and lycanthropy and their differences, going all the way down to King Lycan in ancient Greece. But the material is focused more on the medieval times and a lot of the court cases that were going on dealing with werewolves. And I actually have some transcripts from those court cases in the 1500s and 1600s inside the literature, inside the books. So, yeah,
That's awesome.
that's just an
That's
advertisement, though. That picture isn't in the book. I can show you some of the pictures that are in the book, though. I have that available, but go ahead.
Yeah, but that's creepy. What was I talking about? That was like, woo! I was like, whoa.
I told you.
What you just saw there, what you just saw there doesn't metamorph by the moon. I will tell you that the ancient rituals to turn into a werewolf are a little bit more gruesome and descriptive than howling at a moon or a full moon just showing up. Even though there is
Right.
a connection in between the moon and lupus, and yeah.
Yes.
Keep going.
I'm telling you, he's got some wild pictures and stories. This guy.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting just this man, just his snout growing out of his face.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, they call that the long nose. But the long nose has a whole nother description on what that means. When you get into the medieval, things get real fine-tuned on the social implications of what they're meaning. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was listening to a podcast. Well, it was YouTube, actually. It wasn't a podcast, while I was cleaning today and doing laundry. And it was actually Tony Merkel from the Confessionals, who was talking about a show he had done. And this man was talking about how, he used to always go out hunting with his granddad. I'm paraphrasing. Don't come for me. And his granddad was just, too old to go out there, but he was sitting in the truck with a walkie radio. And so they had released the dogs to go after the coons. So then they heard the dogs, tree something. So he went out there, and then there was the coyotes. So that's when his granddad said, you need to go out there because those coyotes are going to kill the dogs. And it's not going to be good. Mm-hmm. So we went out there, and sure enough, the coyotes were out there, and they were fighting the dogs. And I think they were both shepherds, if I'm not mistaken. One was Bo and one was Jake. Well, they had fought them off and went back to barking up the tree, and something else came out of the trees. So Bo took off and just kind of left Jake. And Jake was a younger dog who was kind of learning from Bo. Well, so Bo took off and left Jake there at the tree. And so I'm like missing teeny tiny pieces of this, but what came out of the tree line was large enough and wolf-like enough. But I'm telling you, when he gave the description of this, the massiveness of the head that was described, he was carrying a coyote, like rib cage in his mouth, carrying this thing coming out of the tree line. Mm-hmm. So it's something that it's so hard to wrap your mind around. You're just like, how is this even, possible? And the guy, of course, he's just standing there. He's like, this is it. This, I'm going to die. This is how it's going to happen, and, I think he had his gun with him, and he went to shoot him. And the dog ended up going after this thing to protect his owner. And then Jake ended up being thrown, so he thought for sure that his dog was dead. So he took off, and then they came back the next day. They never did find Bo, or at least he didn't say that within that part. Didn't listen to the actual show. So then the granddad was like, well, we'll leave a jacket. But then they ended up finding Jake. I mean, he was in bad shape. He said his ear looked like spaghetti noodles. I mean, just really bad shape. But he did survive and lived until he was a really old dog before he died. But when you hear, you know, it's really hard to wrap your mind around something like that. Just to be massive enough to be able to carry a full-grown coyote in its mouth and come out of the trees.
If you ever watch Skinwalker Ranch,
Mhm.
people who owned the ranch before Brandon Google took over, they had a pen that kept like livestock into, and inside this pen, this wolf, Dogman, the guy says that it looked like a werewolf type of animal. It actually had the animal by the leg, pulling it through the fence. The man shot it 6 times with a pistol. Didn't even hurt it.
Yeah.
Ran out a shotgun and shot it again, and finally let go of the calf's leg, got up and ran off. And as it ran off across the field, it just disappeared. It just footsteps stopped, it was gone. And he said that was the scariest thing he'd ever seen in his life, because what animal could take 6 shots from from that? It was 357 Magnum, and then a 12 gauge shotgun. All it did was pissed it off, and it left.
Right. Well, and that's what you hear a lot from these encounters. It's either, well, and compared to Bigfoot too, it either looked too human, or I'm not going to do anything but piss this thing off. So I'm not even going to attempt to shoot it, because it would be so mundane. It would just be a waste of time. And then all of the encounters that you hear for Dogman, I have never heard a good one, ever. They may be out there, but I haven't heard them.
So in your book,
right. Well, when you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, all I was gonna say was, when you were deep into the occult or witchcraft, you definitely run into an understanding that these beings may not be, just because they're in the shape of an animal does not mean that they are an animal. Okay, let me keep it short
Exactly.
like that. Right.
But
and that's definitely what'd you say now?
I said, but I'm picking up what you're putting down. 100%.
Yeah, and that's definitely the root definition to a familiar. I don't know if you were using that term in its original sense of what a familiar is. Were you, or
not in the unfamiliars? No, the unfamiliars.
Okay.
I was and the unfamiliars. No, in that book, in the Appalachian Mountains is where I put the location of this story, and the unfamiliars of the woods are the Bigfoot.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
It's just because I used it in a literal sense, like they are unfamiliar to the main character, which is Hardy Kilgore. He went out to the Appalachian Mountains to retire because he was a police officer, and cool thing.
Right.
I had actually coined Hardy Kilgore after Wayne's granddad in real life. That was his name. That's his description. Everything in there is Wayne's granddad. So I really wanted to do that character justice for that reason. So, but they were unfamiliar to the main character. So we named the whole book The Unfamiliars, because everything he experiences, it's not something that he is familiar with at all. And he wasn't expecting, because the poor guy went out there to retire and he did not get to retire. Not from that anyway.
Exactly. When you truly understand the definition of life, you don't retire until you hit the coffin. Okay. Yeah.
But this was definitely something he wasn't familiar with, and to run into out there.
Right.
Tiffany, there's a question up there for you.
Which would you rather encounter, Dogman, Bigfoot, or a pissed off ghost? None of them is an option. None of them is not an option. Dang it, T. Roy. Definitely not a Dogman. I mean, because he'll eat me. A pissed off ghost. Probably a pissed off ghost. If I had to choose between the three of those, I don't know. If you.
Well,
I guess you would have to look at the context there. So if it's just a pissed off ghost, but Dogman and Bigfoot are behaving themselves, then I would encounter a Bigfoot over the Dogman or the ghost. But if the Dogman and the Bigfoot were also mad, I would definitely choose the ghost.
Well, I personally myself, I've dealt with ghosts, and I don't like that. Bigfoot, I've seen him get shot twice, and he didn't fall down. And the Dogman, I have no clue. So all I know is if the three of us are in the woods, I only got to outrun you two.
Yeah, no, God, I will die. I'm telling you, I am the one that gets chased by these freaky things, and I trip and fall, and I die, and y'all get away. That's how it would go. That's how.
Well, just do the sign of the cross and 3 Hail Marys, and it'll be done. You'll be fine.
It'll be done.
We know this. How the movies, the girl always falls, and the other guys get away. We're safe, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to not be the slowest in the group. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can rub some sulfur on your clothes, then they'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
I'll
just carry around this
big any one of those two, Dogman, werewolf, Bigfoot, they could never catch me anyways because they'd be cleaning their eyes out because the shit would be coming out my pant legs as I'm running away from it.
This is so true. This is so true. And and I know you wanted to talk about the encounter that that my husband had here in 2021. And for the longest time I was like, okay, because like we said, I'm a chicken. I was scared of everything unless it was something in my comfort zone. I was afraid of it. So, but he got to experience like half a second of what we could only assume to be a Bigfoot. I mean, we never were 100%, but it was really tall, it was really dark, and it was really fast. And then it was gone. He got to experience that. Do you know what I get to experience? Freaking ghosts. Something that scares me more than freaking ghosts. But see, and then you have, so we had the Bigfoot happen and the ghost thing happen all around the same time. So then you have people saying, okay, well, are they related? Well, I don't know, 100%. But it did. It all happened at the same time. He got the Bigfoot.
Your husband saw Bigfoot and you saw a ghost the same day?
No, we had the same experiences. He had his Bigfoot encounter when we were mowing the grass. And we mow together. I love to mow. I'm weird, but it's my thing. So I will mow. We live on a downslope. So I will mow. And when I'm finished, I would just go back up to the top while he weed eated. And he was cleaning off the fence with a weed eater at the time. And he had his AirPods on. We both wear AirPods when we do yard work. So he had turned his music down and he was fixing the line on the weed eater. And that's when, your eye searches for movement. So something had, it was just, he just felt like something was looking at him. So when he looked up, that's when he caught the glimpse of, something really tall off, in front of him. Because we have a chain link fence And so I'm awful with distance. But when I went down there, because he called me and he was like, hey, let me ask you a question. And I was like, okay. And he said, do they come out in the daytime? And I was like, what? And he was like, Bigfoot, do they come out in the daytime? And I said, well, yeah, you have your day watchers. And I was like, why? And he said, because I think I just saw one. And so, buddy, I'm telling you, I did not let the grass grow. And I was down the stairs and down in the backyard. And so, but he is 6'1", 285-ish. And I am 5'4". I'm just nothing compared to him. But he was so afraid. He didn't want me to leave him.
Wow.
And we didn't finish doing the yard that day, which is also strange because we're very anal about our grass. But no, we didn't finish the yard that day. So there were several things that he experienced, what he could only believe to be a Bigfoot, and then there were several other things. We had rocks that were made up into a straight line going up our driveway. Do you think Dogman can cloak? That's a tricky question. I've never really thought about Dogman cloaking. You just really hear of, the supernatural Bigfoot cloaking. I've never really considered that question, if Dogman can or not.
How do you define cloaking?
Well,
how do you define cloaking?
There 1 minute and gone the next.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Predator, you just kind of dematerialize. But with their
dematerialize.
Yeah, but with their coloration, they could back up into the wood line, I don't know. It's a tricky trail, that one is, because there's so many different opinions on the supernatural of Bigfoot.
I was watching the cameras at Skinwalker Ranch, and they've got a video of it. I don't know what I saw, or when I typed it in, we put it on the show. But I was watching the one of the homesteads, and the camera shoots like the inside of the homestead, kind of like outside type of thing. And this black shadow walks across, and then as it peeks out of the building, it looked like a Bigfoot walking, but shimmering, like
Yes.
he was, and then it's like, if you blink your eyes, you'll miss it. And I watched it, and I'm like, did I see that? And I backed up the camera. I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay. Well, then I typed it in. So I couldn't even find it on the reel. I just went ahead of the reel, the time zone. And then they showed it one day on the show, something that someone seen. It was identical to what I saw. Now, you can see the Bigfoot walking like he does, but he was shimmering like Predator.
Yeah.
So I truly believe they have these powers to do this. You know what I'm saying? I just asked Steve Collins the other night, footprints just disappearing. And, he gave us a thing that was birds tracking it. And you're actually seeing this 6, 7 foot, 8 foot monster running across the field, and he turns the corner, footprints stop. It's not a bird. You know what I'm saying?
Gone. It's just gone.
Yeah. So did it porthole, or does it have the ability to cloak and get away? That's
Right.
something I always ask, and I've seen different things about that, so I know what you're talking about. And yes, Bigfoot does sit out in the daytime. They've got day watchers watching people, what they're doing. And that's what the night watchers know. Hey, can't be in the woods tonight. This is going on. You've got to understand that we're not the only ones in the woods.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I think he ticked it off because during the summer, because we are on a downslope, it's like this, and our house is here, and then it goes down, and then we have a flat area, and then it goes down again. that whole area is just overgrown immensely. And on the opposite side of the fence, it's the same way. So there is a little alcove that whatever this was could have gone straight up. But okay, you're looking, it's like 4, 5 o'clock in the evening when this happened. So we have Benton Mountain Road, or in the Back Creek area, there's a guardrail. There's a very busy road right there. There's no way that this thing would have hopped over a guardrail, went running through the creek, and back up in the mountain area on the opposite side of us without being seen. It makes no sense. It was just gone. He said it sounded like taking a baseball or a walnut and throwing it through the trees. It was gone.
Well, again, I asked Steve the other night. He said he had a Bigfoot watching him, and it came up on their camp. They didn't even hear it.
Yeah.
You know? The night that Bigfoot stole those 2 deer at my cousin's house, ran up the mountain with them. I mean, we seen him running up the mountain from the light of the house was shining, but he didn't make any sound either. There was no leaves around the ground. It's November.
Yeah. It makes no sense. And we had Justin England on from Cryptid of the Corn, and he and I talked after the show, and he has 3 theories, or 3, I don't know. He thinks Bigfoot are flesh and blood. There's a flesh and blood, there's a supernatural Bigfoot, and then there's the Fae. So then you throw into the, in the Fae of, and Bobby Dizzle had a guest on, and I cannot remember for the life of me what his name was. But he was saying, well, maybe that's you're so funny. But he was like, so what if this is the reason why they suddenly disappear, is they are the Fae, and they just shapeshift back, down into the forest floor. There's so many ways that you could look at it. And some of it's a really big ask, and I understand that. But I think to be a good researcher, you have to look at everything.
Look, what do you think about that?
Well, you're talking about different dimensions of the mind, and these things can be seen when you've gone through specific rites and experiences, okay? Especially when it comes to intake of specific chemicals like ergot, or ergot, which is the root chemical used inside our modern day LSD. It's a rotted rye, okay? And there was many plagues of that occurred in the medieval times that assisted a lot of these hallucinogens, but there was a lot of other chemicals in the environment that could have done so as well. So everything fits in this environment, from trolls to brownies. A brownie was a form of troll during that time. Even leprechauns, even though leprechaun is sort of a derogatory term towards the Khans of Genghis Khan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the leprechaun is actually 2 words. It's a leper, which was somebody who was afflicted with the disease of leprosy, and then Khan put together. So you have other entities, fairies, and different forms of fairies, and different types of witches that all fall in this category, that live in a different dimension, that can be considered real depending on where your intellect is at, and depending on your mental stability as well. And like I said, it takes rights to get into those realms, to be able to see or to be able to have direct contact with those beings. Okay. And that is those beings live in a world we call the other world. That's not the underworld. The underworld and the other world are 2 different things.
Different.
So
Right.
yeah, right. So yeah. So it's a possibility. Depends on how far you want to go into existence,
Yeah. How far down that rabbit hole, do you really want to go in one night? Because it's one right after the other, they all feed into each other.
Right. um yeah, so and this all really bounces back on the nervous system of the human. When you look at
Mhm.
human history, um we've lived in a lot of different formats, whether that be abodes or teepees or caves, or we've lived in a lot of different conditions. We've developed a lot of different languages. So the nervous system of the human, which I think can stretch to about 5,000 miles or something like that, um
Mhm.
can you can wire it in a way where it can see a mass amount of things and do a mass amount of things, right? So
Mhm.
basically, it's like I said, it's all about the experiences that you've been through, which allows you to be able to be in other dimensions and actually see these things and have interaction with them. Okay.
Right.
Right.
Let me answer this question for Alex. Could Dogman be feeding off of our fear? I have heard that so many times that the more fear you show, the worse it is. Do I know that 100%? I don't know 100%. I came on here determined to hide my stupid. So, but I can't answer that question. But am I working on another book now? I'm writing, but I haven't really delved 100% of me into another book as of yet. It's here, but not on my laptop.
Well, there's sort of a reverse to that question, if I may take it on. Could the dog man be feeding our fear? The dog man, which all dogs do descend from wolves. So we have to understand that first. So when we say werewolf, we're talking about the father of the dog man, and
Mhm.
the that goes into the unconscious mind of the human characteristic and how we go about our socialism. Just like the term was used in The Wolf of Wall Street, the werewolf is actually a part of the psychological mechanism for males to impose fear in whatever they are doing. Okay, as that's what a werewolf does in its movies. And
Mhm.
this is the animalistic fear, which is a little bit different than the entity of the Dracula, okay?
Mhm.
Or which the Dracula's grandfather is the undead, okay? But they're all blood suckers, is what you have to understand. And that
Right,
blood
right.
sucking is a part of your survival, right? So you have to have, as a man, you have to have the imposition of fear in order to survive. And
Mhm.
it's not necessarily feeding off of another's fear. You want to incorporate that fear on somebody else so they give whatever treasures they may have. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
um, oh, there's a question for me. Do I believe in dreams, visions, and the like are related to past lives? Um, yes. There's a yes and a no in that. Dreams, I don't really have too many dreams. So dreams is a quasi space for me. But when we talk about past lives, that's a very real dimension. And past lives you can definitely find when you go through the annals of history and you're dealing with real literature. You'll definitely find yourself again in other time periods. And once you make that connection with who you were in another time period, your intelligence and everything else will definitely be advanced, and you'll be giving basically gifts for allowing your past life to see through your eyeballs today, is letting them relive. Okay. So yeah.
That's a good questions in the room today. I'll tell you. Tiffany, so getting back to your terror in the woods, so
Yes.
that was an experience of your your dad's grandfather.
No, the Unfamiliars was
Unfamiliar?
actually, yeah, the Unfamiliars was actually Wayne had come to me and he said, could I ask you, is there any way or would you mind if we used my grandfather as the main character? And I was like, I don't mind at all. I was like, you just need to, give me like description of him and, his name and stuff like that. So that's how Hardy was born in my book, was Wayne's grandfather.
All right, so where did Terror in the Woods come from?
Dogman Terror in the Woods was simply, it just came out of my head. I just said, I don't do an outline. I just sit down and write. I am a pantser. If I had to make an outline, I wouldn't be able to write. So taking the fact that I was doing Bigfoot for Wayne, I took Dogman for Brian, and I just started writing.
So it's I haven't read the book. So is it a story, or is that facts or other people's stories, or what is it?
No, like I said, it's primarily fiction. The Unfamiliars is primarily fiction. There are some true things in there just based off of the research that I did, because I wanted it to be as realistic as possible, even though it's fiction. So, but yeah, I love them. And it just proves to myself that I can do anything that I set my mind to.
Amen.
And had I not taken that on, and had I not taken that step, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm glad that I had that opportunity.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was just telling Booker today on the phone. I said, he's the smartest man I know in Las Vegas. Because every time I have a question, I can ask him, he'll find me the answer. Or it's in his book. And Booker, someone's asking you a question. Mr. Booker, what is the definition of cloaking?
Well, I'm gonna give two different examples of that, because one, just to be short and sweet, is the berserkers of ancient Russia. They used bear skin to inculcate the energies of bear. They were a classification of warriors in ancient Russia, and this is correlated with the origins of werewolfism as well. When we go into ancient Greece, the werewolves, which was King Lycan, and this was also a ritual that was done on Mount Lyca. I think that's the name, Mount Lyca. And the devil basically would give a person a shirt made of human skin. And that shirt made of human skin is what allowed them to be a werewolf for a certain amount of time. Usually it could go for 7 years, it could go for 7 days, sometimes even into 10 years. A person would be able to act as a werewolf. Okay, so that was the lycanthropy that was the werewolfism side of it. We have to understand that werewolfism is specifically a cult, and lycanthropy is a medical condition. Okay, so
is that so what was the definition of cloaking?
Cloaking is putting on a shirt, or putting on something that is correlated to the entity that you want to facilitate. Okay, and that's what cloaking is. Like I put on a red shirt now, and I go to LA somewhere, they may think I'm a blood gang member or something, so it's in a similar format. If I was to if I was to put on, bishop attire, you'd think I'm a bishop, because of the cloaking of what you wear. Boys in blue, the police, they wear a blue shirt with a badge, and that makes them a police officer. So, even though we do have imposters in all of these realms that I've mentioned, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you went through the right to be authentic. Okay. And that's where that's where the line is divided on if you've been through the rites to be authentic. And this why we have a day like Halloween or All Hallows Eve, where we're all allowed to cloak ourselves into whatever entity that we want to portray to the public. Okay, and be accepted as such without going through rites. So that's what cloaking is.
Smartest man in Las Vegas, just told you guys.
I'm telling you. I think I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut and really have
Well, I mean, I don't want, I don't want to portray that light in a form of arrogance or anything, but I do read. I read a lot. All the books behind me, I do read. I have books in my home that go back to the 1500s, 1600s. So, the material that I present is not, it's not Barney. Okay, it's not Sesame Street. I will tell you that. So it is
Right.
old world information. Yeah.
Now the other night, did you show Tiffany the picture of the picture you showed of the Green Man and werewolf?
No, but I do have something prepared that's out of the second volume pertaining. Well, actually, it's original painting. I mean, original drawing. It's a copper plate is what they called them in the medieval times. You had copper plates, you had woodcuts, and
Right.
different forms of drawings of King Lichen from Greece, if you want to see it. And I could read a little expert, which is sort of correlated to where our mental health conditions are at today, where people may collapse into these areas of werewolfism. Okay. Let me see here. I mean, lycanthropy, because there's a medical condition. That's the medical condition for it. Let me see here. If this is the one. Yep, here it is, right here. Can you see it?
Not yet.
No, loading.
Bring it back.
There it is.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, wait till that's a list of werewolves from the 1500s to now. There goes King Lichen of Greece, portrayed in the 16th century copper plate engraving by Italian artist Agostino de Musi as a ferocious wolf-headed man. Okay, the term lycanthropy was also applied to those individuals afflicted with a form of dark melancholy, a deep depression that gave rise to a violent form of insanity. In his Anatomy of Melancholy in 1621, Robert Burton writes that those men and women who are suffering from an advanced form of melancholy that graduates into werewolfism lie hidden throughout the daylight hours, then go abroad in the night, barking, howling at graves. They have unusually hollow eyes, scabbed legs and thighs, and very dry and pale. Dr. Mary Matosian, professor of history at the University of Maryland, viewed such statistics at those from France, which proclaimed that 30,000 individuals were condemned as werewolves between the years 1520 and to 1630. And wondered how such a mental aberration could possibly have been so widespread. As she researched the phenomena, she derived a theory that the peasants were eating a rye bread that was contaminated by a fungus that acted as a powerful hallucinogenic. In essence, Dr. Matosian suggested that thousands of men and women were suffering from bad trips, quote unquote, from a potent fungus that caused them to have delusions that they were magical beings capable of transforming themselves into werewolves. Okay. And that fungus was called ergot. Okay, but yeah, you can take it off.
That's like doing bad mushrooms.
Huh?
That's why you don't trip.
Yeah, you can take it off the screen now. But there's a lot more about that in that section. So I go over a couple of the court cases that occurred during that time and how werewolfism was defined. It was really defined by chaotic criminal activity that was undiscriminate, and that's what a wolf does. In nature, a wolf has no social implication to stop it from eating, and it has to eat. It has to devour Bambi right in front of its mother, and there's no church in the wild type of thing. So, yeah, that's
well, and I think I think a lot of what we do, and we do it with domesticated animals as well, but we have a tendency to humanize them. They are, like wolves are wolves. This is what they do. And bear do what they do. And our dog does what he does. But we have this tendency of trying to make them like us, And I think a lot of times that's what people do with animals in the wild.
Right.
And that's why women stop and they're like, oh my God, look at this fox. No, it is probably rabid and it will bite you. Don't pet the fox, because they're not, we do have a tendency to do that.
So let me ask you a question.
The human. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll ask my question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I wasn't going to say anything. Go ahead.
Okay, this is a question for both of you. Tiffany can answer first. So is that like shape shifting?
As far as what?
Like Booker was talking about, putting the cloak on and stuff like that. For these werewolves and dogmen. I mean, is this a shapeshifters? They got like the dogman. He got caught and came out of it. Like the skinwalkers, they supposedly put, wolf skins on top of them and form like Booker was talking about. Is that the same thing as?
It's just to portray that entity. It's not to really, they do have rituals and such that can be done from what I understand. And Booker, you can correct me if I'm wrong, please. But it's a very tedious thing from what I've read. So I have only seen and researched and stuff like that. Dogman is dogman just from birth on. Skinwalkers, from what I understood, are just completely different from that.
Right. Now, in the old world, they didn't live by the laws that we live by today. They didn't have the understanding that we operate by today in our modern world. And the third thing is that they had a far more stronger environment when it came to the mineral contents of their foods and also herbs. Their water wasn't disturbed with plastics. Their atmosphere wasn't disturbed with gasolines and oils. So when we understand that, and then we understand how medicine was looked at during those times, medicine did incorporate what we would classify today as a form of cannibalism, but during those times it was called pharmacopoeia. Okay, and pharmacopoeia was for instance, if you had something wrong with your hand, you would take the hand of a dead man and tie it to your hand, and it was to healing purposes. Did it really heal? We don't know in our modern state, and we wouldn't be able to check it. Okay, were the rituals that are stated in the old books capable to turn a person into a wolf literally? We don't know. We're not able to check it. And then the process of the rituals are actually illegal in our modern state of understanding. Okay, so we have to state all of that first. What is a bottom line, whether we're talking about a dogman, a werewolf, or a Dracula, or whatever other entity, a zombie, or the undead, what we're talking about is a freedom that humans don't have. And this freedom we don't have because of morale. And our morale is definitely comes to us from religion, even though religion isn't highly supported as it once was when we were all growing up. But the morale structure, and then that morale structure is also attached to hygienic purposes. And your hygiene is what's going to keep you healthy. You understand? So when it comes to the true capabilities, we don't know. Okay, some of the herbs and what herbs were being labeled and underneath different languages at that time are different, and we may not have those plants today. Okay, some of the animals and organs that they used, we may not have today. But what is correlated in between history of our time period and then is that we're still in human status, and we still can't operate in a freedom status like a wolf or a dog. Okay, when you see a dog can shit and piss anywhere and not get any ridicule from it. Okay, they don't comprehend these things until they've been ultrally domesticated and trained to do that. You know, if a dog, once you meet a dog, the first thing they do is run up to your hand, run up to your crotch, and sniff on it. Us as humans, we can't operate like that amongst each other. So we have to understand that there's some do. I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that. Some do, but that's what we're really talking about here is the psychological implications of what humans may admire about the animal realm. Okay, we admire birds so much that we design planes. Okay, and you see how that works. So there is a jealousy there, if you want to say that. So out of that jealousy, you want to portray the entity over time. It falls into a space of trying to access that freedom, and we've done that, and that's what we're looking at when we look at a dogman or a werewolf or even a Bigfoot. Okay, we have to understand that there's always a psychological layer outside of the physical that we're trying to place into a space of archaeology or anthropology or whatever. We always have to remind ourselves about the psychological implications, and that's basically what it is. We can't have animal freedom, and we all desire to, and we are all part of the animal realm because we do share certain habits and activities that animals do conduct themselves under, but they don't worship gods. We do. There's a lot of differences. We walk on 2 feet, they don't. So they may be jealous of us in that standpoint that we understand technology and can design weapons. Animals can't. So yeah, that's where that falls at.
Tiffany, you may have heard the story. You're a big podcaster, and maybe one of you guys can answer this. But there was a man and his wife, man and a woman. They were hiking through the woods, and about 5-10 miles out into the woods, and all of a sudden they started hearing these whoops and yells and screams. And one of these things, time out, it's part of the story, he throws a spear and it goes into the husband's leg. And these were people that were living out in the bush and they couldn't talk. They would yell like they're animals. And the husband got hurt. They were running for their lives. He hid behind a log, and these wild people, wherever they came from, were throwing rocks and sticks at him with spears. And out of nowhere, a Bigfoot comes and shows up and starts whipping some ass on it. I guess, was fighting him. And he dragged the man and woman back to their car in the parking lot and laid them both next to the car. The husband already passed out. Whoa. She was so scared. Right. She said she saw the Bigfoot. She understood what was going on, but why was this thing had her over the shoulder? And the state troopers found them the next morning. And the only thing that they could prove Bigfoot helped them was a foot.
Yeah. I vaguely remember hearing that. And so, and then, there's so many, I don't want to say so many, but the one encounter that comes to mind is when that little boy went missing. And then he was found days later. Yeah. And he was fine. He was fine. And he said, the bear took care of me.
Yeah.
And I think he said bear because, as humans, we have boxes. Okay. So if we see a Bigfoot and we've never experienced that, or a Dogman, or the Loch Ness Monster, or the Jersey Devil, we're going to go through that, in our brain, and we're always going to go and land on something what it is that we are familiar with. So for that little boy, he was familiar with bears. Bears are big and hairy, and so it was the bear that took care of him.
Well, do you really think a bear hung onto a kid for 5 or 6 days and brought him down and dropped him off in a package? The people searching for him went past him and came back and said the bear was taking care of him. I'm not buying that.
No. In my opinion, no. I don't think at all that was a bear.
I truly believe that Bigfoot took care of that little boy, and I believe that story. And I've tried to contact those people, nowhere to be found.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows who they are. But getting back to are those wild people acting like animals? I mean, are they trying to manifest themselves in there? I mean, that's really bothering me in my mind. If there's wild people out there living like that, people go camping, hiking, the dangers. Why are we doing something about it?
Well, that would come in, you have feral people, which are 100%, I mean, you look at Brian from Black Mass Paranormal, who goes, on these live hunts with looking for feral people in the Smokies. And they're there. So, and then you have to take all of that into account when you have these missing cases. And that's another thing that we will sometimes do, missing persons cases on Paranormal Odyssey. And Wayne is actually doing a series on the, he'll record it and then put it out to podcast, is the missing persons. And so, I mean, there's some of them where they just vanish off the face of the earth. So it's like, did something natural happen to them? Did something paranormal happen to them? We went over a story, and I think I told you, but I can't remember, so I'm going to tell you again. His name was, his last name was Gorgos. I always mess his first name up, but he's Romanian. He's a farmer, 63 years old. He always took his cattle to town. He would do business with that. He would sell his cattle. So he would go to town. He was gone for a few days, and then he would come back home. So he left that one day to go to town to sell his cattle, and then he didn't come back home. And so his family grieved him for 30 years, and then he came back home. He was 30 years older, so he vanished when he was 63, came back when he was 93. He had on the same clothes that he disappeared in. He had a train ticket in his pocket. A car pulled up to the gate of their house, dropped him off, and left as quick as they came. And when he was asked, well, what happened? Where were you at? The only thing he would say is he was at home, but he was gone for 30 years. Where do you go? Somebody had to have tended to him. He had to have been fed. He had to have, showered, brushed his teeth, all this stuff. But he was gone for 30 years.
He had on, not to be all ragged and cold and everything else.
Yeah, it's and it's the ideas that were kind of tossed around in our chat room was, well, he was in jail. But I mean, I don't know in Romania if it's as documented there as it is in the US, but that's traceable. Nobody had any idea what happened to him. They thought he died. They would have memorials for him on his, birthdays and stuff like that. And he just disappeared. Or the people who disappear and then show up and in different places and have no idea how they ended up there. It's just like they have that amnesia. They have no idea what happened to them. They were at one place 1 minute, and then they're at another place another minute. It's all baffling. Yeah. And see, and that's what we had talked about, was that it could have been a portal. And we had, Naomi Finn, who had come on and was talking about the man who went completely missing while on a bus. How does that happen? There's people. How do you go missing when you're on a bus or a train? It's just things that don't make any sense whatsoever.
What do you think about that, Booker?
Brother, this world is connected to a lot of different dimensions, so it all depends on what your destiny is, and you may be called into another realm for whatever purpose, and you may have to stay there forever, how long is required, and be brought back, and in different dimensions is different rules. It may be a different time structure. There may be a different rule structure when it comes to your consuming and how you eat, and you may not have to eat in another dimension, and that could be for the extent of 30 years. So you never know. When you understand the unlimited possibilities phrase, that's exactly the existence that you're in right now, is there's unlimited possibilities. So
Right.
So feral people, feral people actually do exist then, and these people acting
Oh,
like
yeah.
animals. So, no one's ever found their homes. They live in caves. They're out just killing and stuff. How come all of a sudden this is starting to come out? I've never heard of it before.
Well, you just got to research and dig.
Well, that's why I
Strange
got you
things.
two experts on here,
Yep. I'm telling you, Mr. Google will tell you a lot. But then you have to confirm what Mr. Google says with your own research and your own common sense and your own logic, knowing that you can't believe everything you read on the internet.
That's true. I don't believe anything I read on the internet. The only thing I believe is when I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror and I go, "You sexy devil," and it says, "You are." But we've been on it for a while now, guys, and hate to cut us short, but you guys got anything you want to say about typically anything about your books for people to buy them or get a hold of you, to be on your show, hold you personally, or
Absolutely. We are always looking for people who have had, we want to be somebody's safe place, because we are not judgmental at all. We are never going to laugh at you when you come on and you tell us your story and the encounter that you've had. We are open for anything. So you can absolutely reach out to me through my email is tiffany@paranormalworldproductions.com, and just shoot me an email and we can talk. Even if you don't want to come on the show, if you just need an outlet to say, hey, look, I've been carrying this for so long. I just need to get it out. And you don't have to even come on the show. But if you do want to come on the show, we can set you up with, dates and times that work best for you. Always. So, but my books are available anywhere online. So it's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, HangerOnePublishing.com, anywhere you can buy books online. Dogman, Terror in the Woods, and the Unfamiliars are there. So.
Final words there, Big Buck?
Okay. And Miss Tiffany, I would love to be on your show to be interviewed. If you want to interview me about some nonfiction paranormal, we can definitely get down.
We have booking for July, Mr. Booker. We are booking for July. So definitely shoot me an email and we can get you scheduled.
Okay. Well, for those in the audience, my name is Keenan Booker. You can Google it. You can also go to kickedoutofheaven.com, where I have the books. Now, the 3 books that I do have over 1,000 pictures in them, and they're all in color, and they're in a better condition than what you'll get from Amazon. My books are also available on Amazon and all other retailers such as Barnes & Noble, Target, so on and so forth. But yeah, it'd be best for you to get them from me. They do come with a certificate of authenticity as well, signed. So yeah, kickedoutofheaven.com. Go check it out.
Oh, and I do want to say, Wayne and I will be at the Bigfoot, the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference, July 27th. We'll be there all day. So if you do happen to pick up either one of my books, I would love to sign them for you. That would just make my day. You come out and just say, hey, stop by. We're going to be with Sasquatch Odyssey. Brian King Sharp's going to be out there as well. And that is July 27th.
July 27th, 7/27. Okay. Mm-hmm. Be there, be square. Is that in Las Vegas?
No.
Okay. So come check me out.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we had a great night.
Is the
I hate to leave you
Go ahead, bud.
No, I was just asking her, is that convention here in Vegas?
Tennessee.
Is that convention here in Vegas? Oh,
Tennessee.
Okay.
I was going to play the intro out, but go ahead. I mean, we're still going. We don't have to cut off. We can push this off for another half hour, guys.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. I got some things I got to get to anyway. But yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you, everybody that's stopped on the show to watch it tonight. I think the best is fun. It's great. Go get it. Go. Honestly, there's some funny stuff about my people. And Booker, my host, my buddy, my friend, brother, thank you so much. Let's be in touch, and God bless every one of you guys, all those words.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning.